We're now less than 2 months away from the release of Project Cars 3, which looks like it'll be more streamlined and gaming oriented than its predecessor. In this video, I'm going to discuss why I think they may just be onto something with this new approach. What's up guys, it's Mike for SimRacing604, and first off, let's discuss from 10,000 feet what this new approach is. So developer Slightly Mad Studios has been revealing more and more details about their upcoming release over the past few weeks, and it's looking like they will do away with some of the things we usually hold as core elements of what makes a racing sim a sim rather than a game. Things like tire wear and pit stops. Yes, pit stops. When the first few clips of the game surfaced, a few keen observers noticed that the pit lanes were coned off. This was a yellow flag in the sim community, and it was later replaced with a red flag when it was confirmed by SMS that pit stops would not be a part of the Project Cars 3 experience, which of course also means that fuel usage will be a thing of the past. So with all these so-called sacred elements of sim racing out of the picture, how could I possibly think that this title will be any good? Well, in summary, I think it fits exactly with what the Project Cars series has done best up to this point. So I've openly discussed my gripes with PC2 in the past, and I've been very vocal about how inconsistent it can be. Driving something like the Aston Martin DBS 59 or the Formula Renault is a great experience, quite frankly. Likewise with most of the Group C cars. But there's also cars like the Aston Martin Vulcan, which in my opinion ranks among the worst sim cars I've ever driven. But in spots, Project Cars 2 can be great, specifically with a few select cars in either a hotlapping session or a sprint race. And speaking of sprint races, let's be honest, how many of us regularly use the pits over the course of a race? It's not always the case, but of the hundreds of sim racing channels that I follow, outside of leagues, I can hardly find anyone who consistently races anything much past about a half hour. So fuel is really about one initial calculation rather than fuel management during the course of a race, and likewise with tire wear. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of sim races where tire management becomes a factor late into a race, but like fuel usage, you could make a case that most sprint racers and hot lappers are just doing one initial setting and hardly worrying about tires. But with all of this said, I would like to state that I would prefer if they had chosen to include at least the option to pit. Given a choice between having them and not using them, and not having them, I would rather have the option to use pit boxes. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Slightly Mad Studios looked at the usage of the previous title and decided that spreading themselves too thin, including elements and content that no one really uses, was the cause of a lot of the shortcomings of the previous titles. So it's possible that they're looking to trim the fat and give the best experience for how most of their players will use the game most of the time. This means it probably won't be a viable option for most racing leagues, or at least the ones that mimic real-world racing series that mandate a pit stop. But it seems like those leagues are a niche of sim racing that Slightly Mad was willing to shun. These factors will definitely tip things towards the gaming end of the spectrum rather than the sim end, but again, maybe the typical user doesn't take advantage of what makes a sim truly a sim. Another question is whether we need another racing sim. Sims are unbelievably detailed racing titles that often take a year or more to really come into their own, whereas a game can often be expected to be replaced annually or biennially. Slightly Mad will definitely be under pressure to pump out more content for their new parent studio Codemasters, so for them to make something that competes with iRacing or rFactor 2 or Assetto Corsa Competizione would take years and probably wouldn't be a viable business case for them. I feel like Project Cars 2 tried so hard to compete in the sim realm and they never really got there. The 200 plus hours I've invested in PC2 have mostly been spent in taking one of the road cars out to one of the tracks and doing some cruising or hot lapping, and maybe just a sprint race. My serious sim racing usually leads me to ACC or rFactor 2, and I don't really need to change that. So, if I'm right about their intentions, the onus will be with Slightly Mad Studios to make all of the cars in Project Cars 3 drive like the best of the cars in Project Cars 2. Again, if every car in PC2 drove like the Aston Martin DBS 59 or the Nissan R89C, the title would have been loved within the sim racing community in my opinion. But SMS must nail that feeling and bring it to all of the cars when the game is released on August 28th. If they're able to focus themselves on sprint races and hot laps, and maybe make a game that we're able to use similar to how we use GT Sport or Forza Motorsport, but it drives just as well as the best of the cars in PC2, I would definitely be into that. It's just a simple premise with a jump in and drive a few quick races style, rather than a full simulator that requires you to manage all of the elements of a car over longer races, but it still includes an enjoyable driving experience. That sounds pretty good to me. So later this summer I will be buying PC3 in the hopes that they can live up to this, but please let me know in the comments if you plan to buy it and why or why not. Thank you guys for watching.